nervous, you can find it in yourself to take that first step.
You can improve your future. You can do this. I know you can.
You need to start pushing yourself.
Now get your game face on and take the first step towards a better life. Hurry up! Don't make me repeat myself.
Whatever level of motivation you need to get your GED diploma, we've got a pep talk that's right for you. Call 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or visit yourged.org for your pep talk and find free GED classes in your area. GED is a registered trademark of the American Council on Education, brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
When is the best time to talk to your family about staying in touch during a disaster? When floodwaters reach your door? When wildfires are engulfing the edge of your neighborhood? Or an earthquake is destroying buildings? When a tornado is tearing through town? Or a hurricane strikes? Or is the best time perhaps today? During a disaster, you may not be able to stay in touch with your family or friends as easily as you think. And it's not always as simple as using your cell phone. That's why now is the time to take action. Go to ready.gov/communicate and make your emergency plan today. Don't wait. Communicate. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Judith Light. So there you are. It's flu season, and you're over 65 like me. You're having another busy year. So much to do, so many roles in life to play. But you feel like you might be forgetting something serious. Your annual flu shot. And before you know it, it's too late. It's not just the aches, fever, and chills that last for days and days. The flu can be life-threatening, especially if you have chronic conditions like diabetes and heart disease, which can worsen with the flu. Being active and healthy alone won't protect you. The immune system weakens with age, making you more susceptible to the flu. If you're over 65, ask about your vaccine options, including one made specifically for us. An annual flu shot is the best way to help keep the flu away. Visit the National Council on Aging at ncoa.org/flu to learn more and talk to your doctor or pharmacist about vaccine options for people 65 and older. Again, that's ncoa.org/flu.
Talk 1470 is WWNN Pompano Beach and 95.3 FM W237BD Boca Raton, the Health and Wealth Radio Network. 1470 AM and 95.3 FM, the Health and Wealth Radio Network. Get it straight from the expert's mouth on Ask the Experts with host Steve O. Every Thursday at 5 p.m.
The thought of my sons growing up without me inspired me to quit smoking.
I talked to my doctors, and then I threw away all my cigarettes, ashtrays, and lighters.
I started exercising instead of smoking.
Getting support from friends online kept me on track.
Staying away from alcohol when I was first quitting was key.
Instead of smoking after I ate, I'd get up and take a walk.
I missed having a cigarette in my hand, so I'd hold a pen or a straw, anything.
Until I knew I wouldn't give in to temptation, I spent more time with my friends who didn't smoke.
I went to places that were smoke-free.
I didn't stay quit the very first time I tried.
I kept on trying, and I learned something each time.
Do whatever it takes.
No matter how many times it takes.
I quit.
I quit.
I quit.
We did it, so can you.
You can quit. For free help, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and CDC.
Gallbladder problems, gingivitis, a bad back, indigestion, fatigue, low libido, not sleeping well, need to lose weight. Just some of the topics you'll hear about. Hi, I'm Dr. Bob Martin. Join me Sunday mornings at 10 on Talk 1470 WNN.
Talk here. Talk there. Talk 1470 AM and 95.3 FM, the Health and Wealth Radio Network. WNN.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teele. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teele, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info. I'm so happy that you could join us today. We have a great show planned, as always, every Tuesday, 5 to 6 Eastern Standard Time. So whether you're listening to us on local radio here in South Florida or you're joining us via the internet and watching us live stream, I'm so glad that you did. We are live from Boca Raton, Florida. Now, last week, my guest was Dr. Kate McCarty. Dr. Kate spoke about one of her books called Feathering Your Nest. This is a book that is for family caregivers. The book's purpose is to be able to better communicate with your loved one by knowing what their preferences are when they're no longer sometimes able to tell you what their preferences are. For example, if someone's favorite color is blue and they have dementia and you want to maybe comfort them or let them choose their favorite color, you might want to have something blue. So a blue shirt or a red shirt. And having blue is going to make them happy because that's one of their favorite colors. There are a lot of different senses that people can relate to, whether it's visual, whether it's auditory, whether it's something regarding taste or smell. These senses bring back a lot of memories. And when we want to comfort somebody and we want to communicate with them, we need to relate to them and meet them where they are. And this book was created just for that purpose. Dr. Kate has generously donated several of her books, again called Feathering Your Nest, Creating a Blueprint for Comfort. This book is available to you as a caregiver just by calling the Arden Courts toll-free number. There is a limited supply, and so we want to make sure that you call us right away. I'm going to give the toll-free number, which is 888-478-2410. Again, 888-478-2410. Tell them that you'd like a free copy of Dr. Kate McCarty's book called Feathering Your Nest, and they will get one out to you right away as long as supplies last. This is a wonderful workbook. Some of the things in here that you will be using to get the information from your loved one before they get to the point where they can't communicate to you include things like my favorite taste. When I taste blank, I think of blank. When I want comfort food, I want blank. Now, you can see how this would be very helpful to someone if you're caring for someone with dementia or Alzheimer's, and maybe they can't express and they have aphasia and they can't express to you what they want, and you want to comfort them. You'll have your workbook handy, and you can go back, whether you're an adult child, a grandchild, or even a caregiver that is a paid caregiver that someone has provided this information. And so when someone wants comfort food and you go to the workbook and it says, when I want comfort food, I want spaghetti or matzo ball soup, then that is what you can provide to them, and that's going to make them feel very comforted and very happy. The taste of citrus is blank for me. Does that mean it's sweet? Does that mean it's sour? Eating chocolate makes me feel blank. So sometimes eating chocolate, it makes people feel happy. Maybe it's reminiscent of something in their childhood. My favorite ice cream flavor, that's a great one. Ice cream is a great comfort food, but wouldn't it be nice to know if your loved one preferred strawberry or pistachio? So that's a really good thing to know because, believe it or not, we have experienced married couples that have been married forever, and sometimes they just don't know these things or don't talk about them or take them for granted. Here's another one. As an adolescent, I love to drink blank. Now, my brother would fill in the blank and say Mountain Dew. So if he were incapacitated and we wanted to give him something that he would enjoy, don't you think for sure that we'd be bringing Mountain Dew to him? For other people, it's different things. When I have the munchies, I like to snack on blank. So you can fill in these blanks, and as I'm telling you about these, I'm sure that you're creating your own idea in your head what it would be for you. So you as a caregiver yourself could actually use this workbook, fill it out for yourself, put it away, and when the time came, if your family needed this to find out what your preferences are, then you're going to have it all in writing, and it's going to be right there, and it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful resource for them. They talk about the favorite sounds. When I hear blank, I want to dance. Now, that could be hip-hop music for the generation now. It could be some music that would be big band sound for the older generation. So this is a wonderful, wonderful workbook. So again, if you would like to have this book, just call the toll-free number 888-478-2410. So now I'd like to pose a couple questions to you. This is something to think about because we're going to be talking about this on today's show. Now, first question. If you're caring for someone who needs to see the doctor, but they were too sick to transport, or it was too difficult to get them to the doctor, what would you do? Next question. Have you ever gone to a primary care doctor's appointment with a loved one that had dementia and had to wait for hours in the waiting room? I'm sure you have experienced that at one point. What would you do? How hard is that? How do you keep your loved one in a position to wait for many hours in order to see the doctor? It's not very easy. Are you new in town and you get sick and you don't have an established doctor to see and you're not sure what to do? Or do you want to avoid going to the emergency room, but you can't get an appointment with your primary care physician for 2 weeks? You may have experienced some of these scenarios, and if not, know that it is a very possible scenario that could happen to you or anyone else. So my guest today will be addressing all of these scenarios and more, and how to deal with all these situations. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, I'll be introducing to you our special guest, and we'll be talking all about this. So we'll be right back.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides.
The inability to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's, particularly among the family members who care for them. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts. Being unable to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know. We understand. We can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts.
Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
And we are back, and you just heard a commercial from our newest local sponsor, Right at Home. And if you'd like to call them and ask more about their services, you can call them at their local office at 561-910-1843. And you'll be right at home when you call Right at Home. So thank you for coming back and joining us. We have a great show today. We're going to be talking about what to do when you don't have a doctor, primary care. You can't get in to see your doctor right away. Maybe there's no time. Maybe you just need somebody to come to you. And that is exactly what my guest today is going to be talking about. And with me here is Dr. Seth Levy. Hi, Dr. Levy.
Hello. Yes, my name is Dr. Seth Levy. However, I am not a physician, and I don't play one on TV. I'm actually a PhD doctor, so just want to make sure everybody realizes that. But basically, we have two companies. One is called Dr. House Calls, that sees patients anywhere in Palm Beach and Broward County, and only for traditional fee-for-service Medicare.
Okay, let's talk about that, because what we want to do, we want to break this down for people. Right. And we want to explain the difference between a fee-for-service, between Medicare, because we have caregivers that are listening to us today, and sometimes, they don't understand the differences if they're new to the healthcare field. Right. Sometimes people are on a Medicare Advantage program, and what's the difference between that and straight Medicare, fee-for-service, those kinds of things. So what we're talking about, I guess the first one I'd like to talk about is the doctor's house calls.
Yes.
Now, is that the one that's private?
No, Dr. House Calls is the one that sees Medicare patients.
Okay.
Medicare fee-for-service only. We do not see any HMOs, only Medicare fee-for-service. Now, many times people will ask me, well, I'm not homebound. What can I do? So we're not a home health company. We are a doctor's office like any other doctor's office, except we go to people instead of people schlepping to the office.
Right, and that's exactly what we want to let caregivers know, that there are alternatives, because in the world of caregiving, it's not always easy to get your loved one to a doctor's office.
Especially people with dementia and other malformalities and different things.
Right. Maybe they have to be transported with a wheelchair. And a lot of times caregivers don't have the right vehicle to get somebody easily into a car with their wheelchair. Yeah. And it's hard for them to get there. Yeah. Or like I mentioned before we started when we started the program, about sometimes they go to a doctor's office, especially with someone with dementia. And how many times...
Sit there and get coughed and sneezed on and read 20-year-old magazines and get 5 minutes with the doctor.
And get 5 minutes after you wait at least an hour.
Oh, yeah.
When your appointment was at 10, you might be seen at 11:30. And that's only, not that the doctor wants to keep you waiting.
No, of course not. They're very busy.
They're very busy.
They have a lot of people, but it's much easier to see somebody in the comfort and security of their own home.
Right. And the doctors that are now in their own offices, they are trying to fit in as many people as they can.
They're under a lot of pressure to see as many patients as they can in an hour.
Right, and they're overloaded. And sometimes if you have a patient that's going to take a lot longer than your 15 minutes allowed, then obviously things are going to get backed up.
Our average stay with a patient is easily 15 minutes to a half hour per patient, and that's for established patients. If it's a new patient, it even takes longer. The most important thing that I want to tell people is if you are on regular Medicare, you do not have to be homebound or bedbound. We are a doctor's office. or non-home health. So you do not have to meet homebound status. A lot of people use us just because it's convenient, or people with dementia that find it very difficult for transportation because the patients can be very agitated and it's very difficult to transport. So this is why, or there's a situation where, oh, I love my doctor, I never want to leave my doctor, but I just broke my hip. I can't get out for 3 months. So they could see us one time and never again. Remember, as a Medicare beneficiary, you always have the right of choice. You could have the same doctor for 100 years, or you could choose a different doctor every day of the week. It's your choice as a Medicare recipient to choose whom you want to have care from if you're on regular traditional fee-for-service Medicare.
Okay, so question about that. So you mentioned someone broke their hip. They can't get out to their regular doctor, their primary care.
Correct.
And so they decide that this is a good alternative to have someone come to them.
Correct.
Because maybe they're just not feeling well. Maybe it has nothing to do with their hip, but they're not feeling well, and maybe they're thinking they're getting a cold or an infection. So they can decide to call doctors' house calls.
Doctor's house calls.
Okay, so let's talk about how that would work. Let's set up a scenario with this case. So a woman, she's 75 years old. She broke her hip. She's not feeling good. She thinks she's getting sick. Has nothing to do with the hip. Can't get to the doctor, or the doctor can't see her right away. Either case scenario is she can't get there. So she knows about doctor's house calls.
Yes.
She picks up the business card. She makes a phone call. Now, what happens after that?
After that, all we do are just basically one thing and two things. One, we verify their Medicare eligibility. And secondly, once we verify their Medicare eligibility, we then call them back and let them know what day and time the doctor would come out. Usually, it takes about 24 to 48 hours to get an appointment.
Okay.
Okay? So they don't have to wait weeks. Usually, we can have a doctor to their door within 24 to 48 hours. But we must verify their Medicare eligibility first.
So that's just done by telling them your Medicare number, and then they run the number.
Correct. I basically need 5 things when a patient calls: their name, their phone number, their address, their date of birth, and the Medicare number. That's it. Anything else they wish to tell me, medications, whatever it is, additional information is always helpful.
Okay, like
but
what's
those
wrong
5
with
things,
them, maybe.
yes, of course. But those 5 things is what I need to verify Medicare eligibility.
Get it going.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
yes,
now,
ma'am.
once you verify the eligibility and you set the appointment, and now you have a doctor going to see this patient.
Correct.
Now, the doctors are all considered primary care physicians?
These are all primary care physicians. So the patient always has choices, I mentioned before, which means this person could use us once and never again. Or they could say, wow, this is great. It's really convenient. I would like for this doctor to become my ongoing primary care physician and see me on an ongoing basis. It's always the patient's decision.
Okay. So
always their choice.
Right. And that's good. Patient choice is great. So if the lady is seen by a doctor, house call physician, and maybe she wants to keep her regular doctor,
Perfectly fine.
Will the visiting doctor, call it a visiting doctor, will the visiting doctor relay all the information to the primary care so
if
that
that's what
he
they
knows?
wish. If that's what they wish. You know, the other thing also is to remember, we are no different than any doctor in any office. Everything, 99% of the things that you can do in a doctor's office, we can do in your home, including, besides a physician office,
magazines.
EKG, sonograms, echoes, blood draws, x-rays, home health, physical therapy, all that can be done in the home. And as long as they have regular Medicare and some type of secondary, there is 0 out-of-pocket costs.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the visiting doctor can prescribe medications.
There's 0 difference between us and any doctor in any office.
Can write a referral for
home
equipment, home health, physical
oxygen,
therapy.
physical therapy, everything and anything that you can do in a doctor's office, we can do in the home.
Okay, that's really good to know. and the doctor will relate that information to your regular doctor if you so wish.
If they wish,
which
sure.
is very good, because for continuity, you want to know that your regular doctor know what's been going on with you, so he could, keep
Yeah,
that
and
in
another
the file.
advantage about us is we're a group. So if for some reason you would prefer, you like the one doctor that came, or you didn't like the one doctor that came, we have numerous doctors that we can use.
All right, good to know.
There are times that if we get really backed up, we do have the availability of nurse practitioners and PAs, but 99% of the time it's going to be a regular doctor, either MD or DO.
Okay. Is this service a new type of service?
No, as you know, young lady, I have been doing this for a long time. I was the director of the original mobile physician group in the state of Florida called MDTU, and I've been doing it ever since. I was very proud to say that at MDTU we had 22 people over the age of 100, and my favorite expression was when we went and saw a patient was, "We're here to get you back on the dance floor."
I like that, because I like to dance.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's just that people might not know about the service. And
That's
I
always
wanted
been.
you to come and
I
tell
appreciate
people
it.
about that, because they don't really know, and sometimes they need that alternative.
Sure.
And it's really good to have. So
Yeah.
I have another question, because I do know some of the answers to the questions I ask you, because I've known you for a long time, but I'm putting myself in the shoes of the caregivers
Sure.
and of our audience to ask the questions that they would ask you
Right.
if they could be here with us today. So one of the questions I'm sure people might want to know is that, what if the patient who needs help at home, maybe they're Spanish speaking, or maybe they're Creole speaking, or another type of language? What can you do for them? Do you have doctors that speak other languages?
Yeah, we not only do we have doctors that speak other languages, I have a service that I can get into that has 37 different languages, so I'm sure it's not a problem.
Okay, so you can accommodate people that
We
are
can
of other
accommodate just about
nationalities?
everybody.
Okay, because that's
Yeah.
important, because
Extremely.
when you're
Especially
going,
in South Florida, where there are so many other languages and cultures. It's a wonderful thing.
right, because a lot of people come here for the winter time.
Oh, yeah, the snowbirds.
Right, and I
Happens
think
all the
that's
time.
a big segment of the people that would also benefit. Now, we have a lot of snowbirds that come to South Florida. They're bringing their loved one with them that have Alzheimer's and other
Sure.
forms of dementia, because they're still able to travel.
Yep.
And it does come to a point where sometimes those snowbirds have to choose either staying up north or staying in
Yeah.
Florida, because it's too difficult for their loved one with dementia to keep going back and forth.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they do choose Florida because it's such a nice place to be
Sure.
in the winter time. And for someone with dementia, that person can get outdoors 12 months
Walk
of
around
the
a
year.
little bit, yeah.
Yep. So they do end up here, but they do come from all walks of life, different nationalities, different cultures,
everything.
And so it's important. So if someone is actually here, let's say it's a snowbird situation,
Mm-hmm.
they have their established doctor up in Connecticut
Yes.
or New York. And now they're here and they don't feel well, but they don't have their established doctor here in South Florida. So this is a case where doctors' house calls would be very convenient for them.
Yes, and we can also be able to contact their doctor up north as well and converse with them, because they might have something, that the doctor needs to know about, or something special, or, out of the ordinary. So there's no reason we can't also coordinate with their doctor up north.
That's a good point, because the doctor up north may want to send information down about history with this patient, especially if the patient's really suffering and you need to get their history and background.
Yeah.
So the up north doctor could fax you a list of medications, could fax you x-ray results or other lab test
Everything
results.
and everything, yeah.
Okay.
The other thing is, too, we have another company called VPG, which is Visiting Physician Group. And that is actually a network throughout the United States and most major countries that is for private pay only. People like you that are rich and famous and would like to have...
You're saying that with a grin, so yes.
would like to have a doctor come to their home, their hotel, their resort, whatever. The only difference is it's private pay. However, there are many, many instances, especially for people that are from countries that have universal health care. France, Germany, England, Canada. we would give them a receipt, an invoice, and they actually get reimbursed 100% of the time when they go back to their country. If it's somebody, say they're visiting from Michigan, and they have some other insurance besides traditional fee-for-service Medicare, we can give them an invoice, and about 80% of the time or so, they can be reimbursed, but we cannot guarantee it. But we see a lot of foreigners, somebody from Brazil, they're in a hotel in Miami, they don't feel well, they call us up. What's nice about the visiting physician component is we can get a doctor to them within 2 hours. So they don't have to wait for anything, where under the Medicare, we have to verify the Medicare eligibility.
I see, because it's fee for service, meaning
Correct.
that you pay on the spot.
On the private pay, they pay us through a credit card.
Okay.
On the Medicare side,
You bill Medicare.
we bill Medicare. We take Medicare assignment.
Right, and there's no payment required.
There's no out-of-pocket cost.
Right, that's
as
really-
long as they're traditional fee-for-service Medicare and some type of secondary. They could be Medicare, Medicaid, Medicare Blue Cross, Medicare ARP, whatever it may be.
So if someone is not Medicare age and they need a doctor in some of those scenarios we talked about
Yes.
because they can't get in
Sure.
or they don't know where to go, this would be a good thing for them.
It'd be a good thing for them, and it's also a heck of a lot less expensive than the emergency room or an urgent care center.
Now that's
A
one
lot
of the
less expensive.
one of the things that I brought up as a question, because a lot of people want to avoid the emergency room
Of
for
course.
lots of reasons. Okay,
Of course.
And one of the reasons is if you go to emergency room, first of all, unless you're on death's door, you're going to be triaged,
Yep.
which means that the emergency room doctors and nurses are going to look and say, okay, you're next because
Who's the worst?
Who's the worst, and who can suffer a little bit
Yeah.
longer, and that's triaging to get the
Yeah.
worst ones first.
So if you had the flu, you have diarrhea, you're vomiting, whatever, I know it's a lovely scenario, but that's how they look at it, as opposed to someone that comes in with a gunshot or a heart attack. Even though you feel horrible, they're going to take them first, and you're going to wait.
Right. So you want to avoid the emergency room, first of all, because you may have a super long wait. I mean, I've known people who have gone to the ER.
10 hours.
8 to 10 hours. That's not unheard
And wait till you
of.
see your cost. The average cost in the United States for an ER visit today is $15,000.
For one ER visit?
The average cost for a one ER visit in the United States is $15,000.
That's absurd.
Now, you could pay $10 the rest of your life, and they can't. But, I don't think anybody wants that kind of money hanging over their head.
And the other thing about emergency rooms is not only are they going to triage who's worse, right, and take the worst first, but if you're a caregiver and you have someone that has dementia, going to an ER is one of the
Horrible.
worst things that you
Horrible.
can do to them. One of the worst things.
It's like torture.
It's not only is it torture to them because they have to be confined to a chair and they don't want you walking around, and if nobody's with that person with dementia, they can get up and walk out of the emergency room doors, and now they're a wander risk and they're out,
What I
walking the
find
streets.
with dementia patients, even if the dementia patient is not, quote, really seriously ill, the problem with taking someone out of what they feel is their, quote, safe environment. They become very combative and belligerent to transport. So it becomes unsafe for the caregiver, becomes unsafe for the patient as well.
Yes. And so I've actually had some conversations with some local hospital administrators here in South Florida about, hey, you've got such a large population of dementia patients in this area.
Sure.
It's just growing and growing, right? Wouldn't
Sadly.
it be great to have a special place in the hospital, in the ER, maybe
That's a great
separate
idea.
section where the Alzheimer's or dementia patients can be better serviced while they're waiting.
So they're more settled.
More settled.
You could do stuff with colors and textures and carpeting.
And you could have
just different
activities
things.
for them. You
Yeah.
could have little activities for them, whether
Just
it's
occupy their time.
coloring or puzzles or some kind of tactile things for them, because even if they have to go to emergency room, that's a way for them to be more calm, not to be so anxious, not to get, like you said, combative sometimes. And it would be a way for a caregiver to be with them, or even if they had to come on their own, they're going to be safer. So these are some of the things that I think going forward, that's not what we're actually focused on here, but I just wanted to bring that up because it's such a problem. And when someone with dementia goes to an ER, it becomes a huge problem, and it's not safe for them.
You know, we know that 60% of the caregivers that care for someone, 60% pass away before the person they're taking care of.
And we know that's because of
the stress.
The stress, right.
You know, and another nice thing is when the doctor goes to see the patient, you know, the caregiver can, you know, go outside for a drink or a cigarette break or just sit in the back and, you know, get 15 minutes, a half hour of stress-free time for themselves. You know, read a current magazine.
Right. Well, there's lots of advantages, and we're going to be talking about more advantages and more details about this special service when we come back. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Do you need the advice of an elder law attorney?
Somewhere at the corner of bewildered and confused is a lost mother, a father, a sibling, a grandparent. Wandering is a common symptom of Alzheimer's or related dementias and can often make those who care for a loved one feel just as lost. If you're looking for a place that's safe and secure, look to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. Being unable to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. Feelings of depression, isolation, and frustration are common among persons living with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's common among those who care for them, too. It takes a lot of patience and courage. It also takes knowing when you can no longer do it alone. At Arden Courts, memory care is all we do. Talk to us. We know, we understand, we can help. Don't let guilt keep you from making the right decision. Visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
And talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
And welcome back. I'm Marcia Teele, your host for Caregiver Solutions Info. I want to thank Right at Home. You heard their commercial. Give them a call at 561-910-1843. If you need help at home, call Right at Home. Also, at this time, I'd like to thank our national sponsor, Arden Courts Memory Care Communities. Arden Courts has 52 communities all across the United States, with 10 right here in Florida. Arden Courts cares for people with dementia and Alzheimer's, and if you are a caregiver and you're looking for a great place for your loved one for either a short-term respite stay or for longer-term placement, give Arden Courts a call, because they will help you and they will help your loved one. The way Arden Courts helps the caregiver, many, many ways, between support groups, seminars that they put on that are free, educational seminars, and by offering the caregivers a free book. This is called the 36-Hour Day Book. It's a wonderful resource for caregivers. It's a family guide to caring for people who have Alzheimer's disease, related dementias, and memory loss. It's written by Dr. Peter Rabins, and it's a wonderful guide to help caregivers know more about the disease and ways to handle the behaviors that come with the disease. So if you're interested and like to have this book, it's free. All you have to do is call the toll-free number at Arden Courts and ask them, and they'll mail you a copy. That number is 888-478-2888. 2410. Again, 888-478-2410. Tell them that you heard about the offer on the Caregiver Solutions info program, and they'll be very happy to get one out to you as soon as possible. So my guest today is Dr. Seth Levy, and thank you again for coming on and being with us. And
my pleasure.
We want to explain the doctor part, because
yes,
you are a doctor, but you're a PhD, not an MD.
As I say, Dr. Seth Levy. I'm not a physician, and I don't play one on TV.
But you play one on the radio show and on the internet here with us today.
Thank you.
Because you are a PhD, but what is your degree actually in?
My PhD is in public health. My master's is in exercise physiology.
Okay, so you are in the related field of healthcare, and so that's why you are here talking about doctors who make house calls. Now, we all remember the day years and years ago, probably before my time.
Before your time. You're way too young for that.
Thank you. It's deceiving. But the doctors used to go to the home, and you would call the local town doctor, and he would take his little black bag, right, and go to the home and make the house call.
Yeah.
Now, the days of that are pretty much gone because of the way our health system's set up. However, the difference is
that today, not only do we bring the doctor, but now we are able to do it with high-tech medical care. Just about everything can now be done in the home. Besides a physician visit, EKGs, sonograms, echoes, blood draws, x-rays. If you need any type of home health, physical therapy, just about anything that would be done in a doctor's office can now be done conveniently in your home.
So if it's an x-ray that's needed, they can bring the mobile equipment into the home?
The mobile x-ray comes right into the home.
Mm-hmm.
If any labs that they need, all the labs, they can be done all in the home, and the lab results you get the next day or so.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in the doctor's office.
Right. So we're talking about doctors coming to the home, and there's lots of scenarios why a caregiver would need or want that. And we talked about dealing with someone with dementia. Sometimes they just don't want to leave. Sometimes they leave me alone. I don't want to go anywhere. They'll put up a fight. They dig in their heels. And what are you going to do?
Become non-compliant. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, too, I always tell the loved ones, what would you rather do? Go sit in a doctor's office with your mom or dad, get coughed and sneezed on, read 20-year-old magazines and get 5 minutes of care? Or, take your mom or dad out to lunch, go out to dinner, go to a movie, have a much more pleasant experience than sitting in a doctor's office.
Right. And there's no difference as far as charges, whether you spend 5 minutes with a doctor or you get longer in your home, because it's billed to Medicare, and it's no cost out of pocket to a Medicare recipient.
As long as the patient has traditional fee-for-service Medicare and some type of secondary, there is zero out-of-pocket cost, not only for the physician visit, but for anything else that they do.
Okay.
The scripts, everything is exactly the same.
Okay.
So they could be Medicare, Medicaid, Medicare Blue Cross, Medicare ARP. Really doesn't matter what the secondary is.
All right.
As long as the primary is regular, traditional, fee-for-service
Wonderful.
Medicare.
So let's talk a few minutes about the doctors who actually go into the home.
Sure.
These are credentialed, they're certified, they have a certification. What's the process?
They have to be, just like any doctor should be vetted at any group. This is a group practice. So we have to follow very strict guidelines. We have to have an extra certification from ACA, which is the Healthcare Administration, besides having a credentialing and certification from Medicare.
Extra because they're going into the home?
Extra because of the type of practice that we have.
Okay.
So we have an ACA certification, and we have a Medicare provider certification.
Okay. Now, are all or some of the physicians board certified?
All the physicians that we have are, first of all primary care.
Okay.
So they're going to be general, they're going to be family, internists, those types of things. Some of the physicians have board certifications in other things, such as cardiology, gerontology, rheumatology, whatever it may be. But different doctors have different certifications besides what they have.
That might come in handy because my next question actually was going to be, what if one of the primary care physicians comes into the home and determines that that patient needs a specialist like a cardiologist? Well, if one of your doctors has specializes in cardiology in addition to being a primary care, that would be very helpful to that person being able to be seen by that type of doctor.
So this is how I really describe it to people. We see such a wide variety of situations and ailments and morbidities and comorbidities that we're extremely well versed in lots of different areas of medicine. So even though someone is not per se a cardiologist, we have a lot of experience in cardiology because of the types of patients that we see. So that's the way I like to explain it.
Okay.
So there's very few things that we have not seen over the last 15 years.
And if someone did need a certain specialist that they really needed to get more in depth with, your visiting doctors can actually write a referral.
Yeah, and there are some specialists such as dermatology, podiatry, I think hearing and sight, a couple other things that will actually also do home visits.
They will.
Yes.
Well, that's very convenient to know, too, because those are some of the major disciplines that a lot of people
They're
would
not
need.
our doctors, but we work with, like podiatry, that we'll do a referral to a podiatrist
that goes
after
into
we
the
see
home.
them.
Okay.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of reasons. Again, podiatry is big, especially with people that are diabetic. Dementia, diabetic.
Yep.
Very big reason for having someone come into the home for that. Huge. And even dermatology. A lot of people that have dementia, sometimes they get little bumps and bruises, but you're not sure if it's just a little wound or if it's something that's happening with their
If it's a
skin.
melanoma.
It's a rash or something like that. So you want to make sure that you can take care of that and
That's for sure.
you get it diagnosed.
Yes.
So that would be very, very good.
And there are a lot of minor procedures that can be done in the home as well. So, obviously we're not going to do open heart surgery in the house, but there are some things that can be done in the home. Wound care can be done in the home. Certain dermatological things can be done in the home.
That's a biggie too, the wound care, because a lot of times people have surgery and it requires ongoing wound care, and sometimes it's like change the bandage every day, every other day. Well, you don't want to be schlepping out to a doctor's office to have that done. It's hard enough. So you want it to come to you and take care of it.
Exactly.
And it might not be a doctor doing it, but it could be a nurse that comes in and does it.
So what I like to tell people is, just like in the doctor's office, the doctor is kind of like the captain of the ship. The doctor prescribes whatever needs to be done, sets everything up. So, for instance, it might be wound care. The doctor would set up the wound care that needs to be done, and then maybe a nurse from a home health company would come in and actually do the wound care. Or physical therapy. The doctor would write the order for the physical therapy, and then we have a couple of very select home health companies that we work with that would then come in and do the Medicare skilled part of that home health.
Right. And that's billed under Medicare Part B.
That's also... no, that's under Part A.
Okay.
So hospitals and home health are under Part A. Labs and physicians are under Part B.
Okay, great. Good to know.
Yeah.
So we're going to take our last commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to have some more good information from Dr. Seth Levy. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Do you need...
Wandering is a common problem for people with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's also a problem for family members who care for them. Keeping them safe and secure means never letting your guard down. And even though deep down you know it's time, it hurts to have to ask for help. but it could hurt them even more if you didn't. We know, we understand, we can help. Arden Courts. The inability to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's, particularly among the family members who care for them. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts. The inability to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's, particularly among the family members who care for them. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts. Being unable to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know. We understand. We can help. To learn more, visit
CareGiver Solutions.
Hi, and welcome back. And my guest today is Dr. Seth Levy, PhD, and he's here representing Doctors House Calls and VPG, which stands for Visiting Physicians Group. Thank you, Dr. Levy, for coming in, and I'll just call you Seth.
Please.
We go way back, and we're talking
She
about.
started when she was 3, though.
You're good for my ego. So I'm sure that you have a lot of experience and stories to tell. But before we get to some of the more dramatic stories that you're going to tell us, I want to go back to the Visiting Physicians Group, because this is the one that's the fee-for-service. And it is important for people to know, because we have a lot of adult children that watch this program. And a lot of adult children, of course, have parents that are elderly and have parents that have dementia, and they become caregivers too, but they have their own lives. And adult children that are watching this program really benefit from a lot of the different guests that we bring on, because they need to know certain things to help either themselves or to help their elderly parents. And one of the things that would be very interesting for adult children to know, because they're not Medicare age necessarily, although some are, because you can be 65 Medicare age and have an 85, 90-year-old parent. So, in that case, the information we shared about Doctors House Calls would be beneficial. But let's talk about the younger adult child and talk about some of the reasons why VPG, the Visiting Physicians Group, how that would benefit them, especially if they were going to be traveling.
Okay, so with Visiting Physician Group, we basically see 2 types of patients, 2 different calls, I should say. One, somebody's not feeling well, they see our website, and they call us up and they say, hey, I'm not feeling well, and we send a doctor out. The good part about the Visiting Physician Group is we will have a doctor to your door, your hotel, your office, your resort, wherever, in 2 hours or less, number one. Number two, the other type of patient that we see is something from called travel insurance. So if there's a person that is coming here from Michigan and they're at Disney, or they're visiting Miami, or they're from Brazil and they're in a hotel in Miami and they're not feeling well, we get a call from the travel insurance company. And again, we have to send a doctor out to them within 2 hours or less. The other thing that's been occurring a lot recently is, you mentioned the children of adult with adult parents, and we call them the sandwich generation.
Right.
So a lot of times we will get calls not only for the grandparents or the parents, but also the children. You know, kids get sick all the time. And when one kid gets sick, all your kids are getting sick. So there's many, many instances where we'll go to a hotel room and see all 3 children that are there.
Wow. So because it's fee for service, children can be seen also.
We've seen infants as young as 6 months and seniors as old as 105.
Wow. So it's important because if adult children are visiting, and we've seen lately, because we're into the first of the new year and the holidays, and a lot of adult children with their kids.
The whole family, sure.
Coming down to visit grandma and grandpa because it's break time, it's holiday time, the kids are out of school, and they're here, and they go to the beach, and they're doing their thing. But you're right, they get sick. Who are they going to call? And I love that you are available for this family because, yes, mom and dad who live here have a geriatrician who is a primary care.
Right.
But it's middle of season. They're super busy.
Yeah.
They can't fit you in, and they don't even take children.
No.
And the pediatricians who would take children, you know, you're not familiar with them, so you don't even know who to go to. Or
And this is flu season, so now you're having the pediatricians, they're also backed up. So now you can have a doctor come and, again, see your children, see the mom and dad, and see the grandparents.
See everybody. And that makes sense because this is a resource. And that's why we have great information on Caregiver Solutions to give you the solutions to something that could happen so that you're aware and that you know about this. I love that idea. My question about the travel insurance is, does someone have to already have travel insurance for their trip in order for...
Yes. Usually what happens if they're going on a trip, usually the travel agent or someone will offer them travel insurance. So it's something that they would purchase specifically for that trip, wherever they're going.
So then your services are covered under that travel insurance?
Yes.
Okay. And if they don't have travel insurance, they can still get you by paying fee for service?
That's correct. When you have travel insurance, it doesn't matter how much the bill is. The travel insurance covers it. Well, depending on what type of insurance they bought with what type of cap.
Right.
And that's why the travel insurance love us, because they don't want their clients going to the ER or going to the urgent care because it is so expensive.
And they're covering that, of course.
And they cover it.
That makes sense.
Correct.
So in all the years that you've been representing physicians coming to the home, physician house calls, doctor house calls, do you have any stories that would be of interest of maybe something that happened that you like to share that would be heartwarming or extraordinary to tell us?
Well, the from two extremes, basically. There's been, I remember there was this one couple. The gentleman was 92. The wife was 88 with Parkinson's.
Oh.
And he broke my heart. We're pulling up, and this guy is taking his wife, trying to get her into the car to take her to physical therapy. I'm like, why are you doing this? Well, she has to have physical therapy. I said, wouldn't it be better if we brought the physical therapy to you instead of this 92-year-old man struggling to get his Parkinson's wife into the car to have physical therapy? So he finally agreed to it, and she did much better, and he didn't break his back.
Yeah.
It's
he
amazing.
just didn't know that was available. Okay. And you had something else that happened. You said sometimes
there's been 2 times that I personally remember, because when the doctor goes out, they go out as a team.
Right.
There's usually the doctor and the doctor's driver, who's also the MA.
Okay.
So if we're short an MA, I will drive the doctor.
It's good to have backup.
Yeah, it's always good to have backup.
So we only have about a minute, so tell us what happened.
Well, basically, there's been 2 times that we got to see the patient, and we literally saved their life because they were having a cardiac event, and we were able to call 911, resuscitate the patient. They were able, and they
you were right there.
They lived
before
twice.
before the ambulance got there.
Before the ambulance got there.
So this is great information. I want you to share with our audience how they might get in touch with you if they're interested in more information.
Sure. For Dr. House calls, it's very simply 561-900-2497, or you can find us on the web at doctors-housecalls.com.
Wonderful. So
for visiting physicians,
yes,
it's actually a very simple number to remember. It's 855-MD-2-DOOR.
Okay.
And for the website, it's myvisitingphysicians.com.
Okay. So there you have it. You have that great information. Give them a call. Find out more about it. You never know when you might need it. In the meantime, call Arden Course and get your free copy of the 36-Hour Day or of the book called Feathering Your Nest that we talked about last week's show.
I'm calling now.
You're calling now. Okay. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. In the meantime, give someone a hug. They need it, and so do you.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teele. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions.
The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly